Sorry, did I make you anxious? Hello everyone, it's Sam, aka Ocean Unknown, and welcome back to my channel. So, fun fact about me, before I became a YouTuber myself, I was a massive fangirl of other YouTubers that were very popular in the late 2010s. During this era of YouTube, with popular creators like Darkiplier, Antisepticeye, and Madpat, aka Game Theory, another piece of my skin fell off. There was this, I guess you could say, trend of YouTubers having a secret, evil, or dark side to them that people would make fan art, video compilations, and most of all, Wattpad fanfiction. About the evil versions of the beloved YouTubers at the time. I was around 13 when this was really popular, and I ate this shit up. But now, as a 20-year-old adult human whose entire YouTube shtick is overanalyzing things, I look back at this phase of YouTube like, why was this popular? Why was this a thing? And what does this say about YouTube trends at the time? Those questions will be answered in this video. Before I get into the real meat, or tofu in my case, I'm a vegetarian, I have a quick PSA about the topic of this video that I feel is important to discuss. The concept of an alter ego is often misconstrued for someone or a character having another personality, and often in cases like that leads to the demonization of dissociative identity disorder, more commonly known as DID. When I get to the section of this video that focuses on fan content, I will intentionally be avoiding content that makes these alter egos out to be split personalities of these YouTubers, so as to not demonize DID as a legitimate disorder. Alter egos have other definitions that don't villainize real-life disorders, so I will stick with those definitions. Thank you all for understanding, and let's get back to the video. So let's all get in line at the high dive and jump into the Marianas Trench that is the world of evil YouTuber alter egos. I feel like I should do like a Joker laugh, because I can't do it, people are asleep. I feel like that was pretty good. Alter ego, Latin for other I or doppelganger, means an alternate self or persona taken on by a person, similar to how a performer plays a character. The term was initially coined in 1st century Rome by the original skeptic Cicero to mean a trusted friend or a hypothetical twin, basically meaning a second self. Moving into the 18th century, the concept of the alter ego completely changed when German physician Franz Anton Mesmer and his followers used hypnosis to separate the alter ego in his psychological experiments. These experiments resulted in a behavior pattern that was distinctly different from the personality of the individual when they were in the waking state compared to when they were under hypnosis. His findings stated that another character had developed in the altered state of consciousness but in the same body. Then in the late 19th century, the crusty piss baby bitch boy himself, Sigmund Freud, studied the idea of dual consciousness to support his theories about the unconscious mind, rooted the phenomenon of the alter ego to the narcissistic stage of early childhood development. Since then, the alter ego has taken on many definitions in pop culture, literature, and film. Some of these include Vivian Darkbloom, the alter ego of Alison De Laurentiis in the show Pretty Little Liars, Hannah Montana being the alter ego of Miley Stewart in Hannah Montana, and countless musicians who have adopted alter egos to indicate a new creative direction or differing emotions or stories from their on-stage persona, such as Nicki Minaj with Roman Zelensky, and my personal favorite, Marina with Electra Heart. As well as every single superhero and villain to ever exist, which is why I'm cosplaying the Joker in this video. However, the most popular of these is the 1886 Gothic novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This story explores how the human personality, mostly focusing on Freud's idea of the id, ego, and superego, can reflect the interplay between good and evil. This story is where we get into the topic of today's video, the trend of YouTubers having an evil alter ego. Now, the concept of YouTubers having characters they'd play in their videos wasn't a foreign concept during this time. However, the concept of the very popular YouTubers of the time having a secret dark side was entirely new. Early in this video, I asked two important questions about the origin of this trend. Why was this popular? Why was this a thing? But I think I know exactly the reason why this trend emerged. Because of a little app called Tumblr. Tumblr in this time, being 2015 to 2017, was like the Ohio of the internet, or the Manitoba for my Canadian viewers. Of course, cringe culture is dead, and I was also involved in a lot of the popular fandoms during this time, but oh my god, the things I have seen because of Tumblr. For those of you who weren't on Tumblr or didn't feel any of the effects Tumblr had on everything else on the internet, I'll give you the rundown of what exactly made these couple years on the internet so fascinating. Nearly everyone had silver hair with dark roots and space buns with a ringer tee with an alien on it, taking pictures with a pastel Polaroid camera, wearing tattoo chokers and Doc Martens and flannels around the waist. This was a time of the age-old teenage dilemma of trying to find an identity and rebel, but also trying to fit into teenage norms. But with all of this, there was a sense of darkness. This sense of somberness and wickedness can be accredited to a couple of other crucial aspects to 2015 to 2017 Tumblr, specifically the popular music, TV shows, and video games. As far as music, there was an era of nostalgia from artists like Troye Sivan, but there was a boom in lyrical dissonance, one of my favorite topics in music because of artists like Halsey, Melanie Martinez, and Marina. Halsey's Badlands, Melanie Martinez's Crybaby, and Marina's Electra Heart, which didn't come out around this time, but was still very much influential to my generation at this time, explored topics typically associated with youth and nostalgia, but paired it with the foreboding sense of death, numbness, and evil. For example, Halsey's Gasoline discusses the toxicity and fakeness of social media, which was a massive part of the unified Tumblr desire to be unique. Lyrical dissonance was especially found in Melanie Martinez and Marina's discography, with it being considered one of Melanie's specialties, and TVTropes.org calling Marina the queen of lyrical dissonance. The eerie pairing of music box tones and song titles typically associated with childhood and innocence, and lyrically telling stories about adultery, toxic family dynamics, heartbreak, and in one, a murderous teddy bear made Melanie very well known on Tumblr, especially taking into consideration that the pastel goth style was also incredibly popular at this time. Whereas Marina's album Electra Heart and her earlier songs off The Family Jewels told stories of feeling numb, the evils of fame and fortune, and how women are perceived in American pop culture through the lens of electro-pop dance music. Similarly to how popular music at the time blended coming-of-age themes with darkness, the video games at the time were full of both nostalgic themes and horror. The late 2015 smash hit Undertale delves into themes of how one can choose between good and evil, and the consequences of choosing evil through the choice of the genocide route. These themes also mend well with the dichotomy between the cute, colorful 8-bit style of the game and the sometimes horrific imagery such as the Omega Flowey fight. But before the boom of Undertale, there was another game that took over the internet with similar themes of taking images from our childhoods and distorting them into pure evil.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's was nearing its first peak during this time as Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was released unexpectedly on July 23, 2015, taking something from many children's youth, entertainment center chains with animatronics, and turning them into absolute nightmare fuel. The Five Nights at Freddy's franchise added to this trend of innocence being plagued with pure terror even further. Five Nights at Freddy's actually plays an even larger role in this topic, but we'll get to that later. The television shows that were talked about frequently on Tumblr also added to the themes of darkness and evil all over the app. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term super hulock, which all of those have the things I'm discussing, but I will focus on one of those shows. Supernatural. For those who have never seen this show, Sam and Dean Winchester fight demons, ghosts, and other monsters, and this show was incredibly popular on Tumblr. Another show with somewhat of a similar concept that was a massive success on Tumblr was American Horror Story.
You're all I want! You're all I have!
Created by the other bald, crusty piss boy himself, Ryan Murphy, American Horror Story curated a massive fan base on Tumblr, specifically the first and fourth seasons, Murder House and Freak Show. American Horror Story is also a crucial part of Tumblr during these years, as many associate this era of Tumblr with the Normal People Scare Me shirts, which is a reference to a shirt Tate Landon, a character from Murder House, wears. Lastly, there was a genre of content on the internet that, while it had been around years before the popularity bloom of Tumblr, it found a place to shine further on Tumblr and continue the themes of horror and evil on the site. Creepypasta. Creepypasta, by definition, are horror-related legends that have been shared around the internet, in which the term was first coined on 4chan in about 2006. The word has now become a catch-all term for any horror content posted on the internet, but mostly focuses on horror stories and internet urban legends. Notable creepypastas include Ben Drowned, Sonic.exe, Jeff the Killer, and the most famous creepypasta, Slenderman. A lot of these stories involved a psychotic killer, such as one of my favorite creepypasta stories, Good Dr. Locklear, which is about a vigil vigilante doctor killing those whom he deems evil and harmful to society. These stories at this time became even more popular, which, along with everything else I just mentioned, saw an influx of two things: audiences' interest in horror, especially when blended with the duality of sweet innocence, and characters who just have a little sparkle of absolute insanity. Characters like the purple guy from Five Nights at Freddy's 3 back when he was known as Vincent among the fan base, Crowley from Supernatural, and Bill Cipher, the main villain of Gravity Falls, became fan favorites for being charismatic, sadistic villains. And starting in 2015, this obsession with crazed, vicious villains would find its way to the very popular YouTubers at the time. Now, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of evil personas of YouTubers, so I will mostly be focusing on the four most popular. Think of them like the Fantastic Four, or what are other famous groups of four? They're the Heathers, but if Chandler was a scary mansplain, manipulate male wife man, Duke was an Irish man with a slit throat, McNamara was an unhinged theater kid, and Veronica was a permanently crying emo kid. Now, who are these alter egos? That's for you to find out right now!
Hello everybody, my name is Darkiplier, and I am officially back, yes!
While Mark Fishbach, more well known as Darkiplier on YouTube, has been posting videos on the platform since 2012, his channel first took off after he began his most popular series in August of 2014. With over 107 million views as of February 2023 when I wrote this part of the video, Darkiplier started his playthrough of Five Nights at Freddy's. This isn't even the last time I'll mention FNAF in this video. Trust me, the impact FNAF had on this topic is astronomical. In 2015, Darkiplier became one of the most prominent content creators on YouTube, hitting 10 million subscribers on October 15th, 2015, and was a huge part of the boom of gaming YouTubers during this era of YouTube. As he was one of the most famous YouTubers emerging during this time, Darkiplier was also at the forefront of the evil YouTuber trend. Mark's evil alter ego wasn't the first of its kind, but it cultivated such a strong presence online as Mark played into creating odd and often unsettling content since his main gaming content were horror games. Not even into his first year on YouTube, Mark posted the video Don't Blink on June 19th, 2012, which just consisted of him staring at the camera in a dark room with a small jump scare at the end. Many fans of Mark consider this 16-second video the birth of his evil doppelganger, Darkiplier. Fans coined this name and created this whole character of an evil and sadistic version of Mark, and used Mark's sometimes odd antics and skits in his horror game playthroughs as evidence of Darkiplier's existence. A prime example of this was his video playing the game Raspy Hill, posted on July 28, 2013, where the end of the video stops the playthrough and turns eerie.
I don't quite feel like myself. I've been having strange dreams lately. But now you're here. And I'll make you feel right at home. Welcome to Raspy Hill.
These out-of-place bits of horror in these playthroughs created lore in the fanbase for the character of Darkiplier, with the original depictions commonly being a demonic entity trying to trick the audience and completely take over Mark's body and his channel. As Darkiplier was a fan-made character, naturally there was lots of fan art and fanfiction of the now loved character. On November 16th, 2013, Darkiplier stated, "I don't know who Darkiplier is. He is not a character I play. I don't even know when you all started calling him by that name. You made him real, and now he knows who you are. Why did you do this?" So yeah, cryptic as hell. But also it's freaking funny starting a Tumblr post about your very popular evil alter ego with, "I don't know who that is." As I mentioned before, Darkiplier was one of the first YouTuber evil alter egos to become really popular, but this popularity grew even further when Mark started playing Five Nights at Freddy's when the emergence of other popular evil doppelgangers started. Fans started making fanfics and stories about Darkiplier meeting these newbies, some of which I will touch on later in this video. During this time, it appeared as though Darkiplier had a disdain for the fan-made character, especially after making fun of the character in his video Darkiplier Returns that was posted on September 2nd, 2014. This disdain is true, as Mark mentioned in a charity stream in February of 2017 that he disliked how Darkiplier was perceived as a romantic character by the fans due to the countless fanfics made about the character. However, this would all change in the year 2017. To celebrate Valentine's Day, Darkiplier posted a choose-your-own-adventure style interactive video titled A Date with Darkiplier. The story of the video follows the viewer going on a romantic date with Mark that can end in multiple endings. If the viewer chooses to pay for dinner in the first video, the date continues with an outing at a theater. We love a man of theater. The viewer's next choice is in the genre of play they and Mark see on their date: a romance titled Love Too Soon, or a horror titled The Dark Mark. I think you all know where this is going. If you choose the horror play, Mark discusses his love for theater, as he should, and sits down. As the play starts, Mark disappears and the video starts to glitch. Not before long, he appears. Darkiplier states that he's waited a long time to see us, the viewers. He says he's been pushed aside, mocked, and replaced. But his final straw was Mark not inviting him on his date with the viewer. He yells, "He promised he would let me in again." Lastly, he states he's done giving people choices, but he will give the viewers one last choice, to choose between 4 different videos.
And let's see how far down this rabbit hole really goes.
I came up with this video title before watching this, but now I think it was destiny. The choices are 3 of Mark's old unsettling videos, including the previously mentioned Don't Blink, but the choice needed to continue the story is the video titled Freedom. Darkiplier goes back and forth from trying to have a romantic flirtatious dinner with the viewer and threatening them. The video cuts to him outside saying, "You're never, ever going to escape me." But before he knows it, Darkiplier and Mark get into a huge physical fight. One of them pulls out a gun, later dropping it in front of the viewer. The player's final decision in this route is whether to shoot the Markiplier on the left or the Markiplier on the right. Spoiler alert, the real Mark is on the left and Darkiplier is on the right. If you kill Darkiplier, the date ends wholesomely with the viewer going out to get ice cream with Mark with the caption calling him a giggly bitch. I'm not even kidding. However, if you kill Mark, the viewer and who we first think is Mark go out for ice cream, only for Darkiplier to reveal himself at the table. He says, "Oops, looks like you made the wrong choice.
Going to be together forever."
In the aforementioned charity stream after A Date with Markiplier premiered, Mark revealed why he experienced disdain for Darkiplier and how the fanbase saw him as a romantic character, and then stated if he was going to make the character canon in the Markiplier cinematic universe, he was going to do it in his own original way. He also states that to him, Darkiplier is an entirely different being from him in his own fictional stories of his YouTube videos. Further talking about his characterization of Darkiplier, Mark calls the character a social manipulator who feeds viewers into a false sense of security in order to take advantage of people and does this through seduction and hidden rage. Hearing Mark talk about how he played Darkiplier as this suave manipulator reminded me of the many times I've worked on shows at my college, when actors have been asked about how they view their characters and how they react in certain scenes. So interesting hearing about this characterization as it pertains to my interest and aspiring job in theater. 5 months later, on July 28th, 2017, Markiplier released his second video with the canon Darkiplier character, being a fight between him and another YouTuber alter ego that will be discussed later in the video. This video is considered uncanon in the lore of Darkiplier and said other evil alter ego, but the video pays homage to the evil YouTuber trend of the 2010s. Then, on October 10th, 2017, Mark started the lore-filled series Who Killed Markiplier? A play on classic whodunit murder mystery stories like Clue, Who Killed Markiplier is another story told from a first-person POV, almost like we as the audience are embedded in this story. We are invited to Markiplier Manor and are introduced to a gaggle of curious characters, many of them played by Mark himself. We're first introduced to the Colonel, the Mayor, and Mark, the owner of the manor. After a lively night of partying and playing poker, the viewer encounters the Mayor the morning after. The Mayor reveals that the viewer went a little wild the night before and that he knew the viewer in college. He says, "Then again, I'm still not exactly sure as to what we're supposed to be celebrating here. I mean, it's good to have the gang back together, but out of the blue like this seems... Anyways, now is not the time to become conspiratorial. Life is ours to choose, as I always say." As the Mayor heads off, the viewer heads downstairs, and a deadly sight is upon the viewer's eyes. Mark is... dead. The viewer now acts as the detective's assistant in the murder case, as the viewer witnesses an argument between the Mayor and the Colonel. This is where we learn the Mayor's real name, Damien. The next time the viewer encounters Damien is outside on the balcony, where he apologizes for his argument with the Colonel. He reveals that he's known Mark since they were kids, and he feels lost after losing him. Damien tells the viewer he needs time to think as the detective reveals that Mark's body was taken from the crime scene. Later in the investigation, Damien shares his suspicions of the detective with the viewer, as they hear a gunshot from inside the manor. The detective and the Colonel are at a stalemate with their pistols, but before one of them can shoot, a woman walks in. This woman is Celine, a diviner, who plans to communicate with the deceased Mark. As the viewer follows Celine to perform a divine intervention, Damien tries to halt her, but Celine assures him that she knows what she's doing. He shares his concerns with us, the viewer, as we enter Celine's room with candles and a crystal ball. After the realization that the groundskeeper George could be the murderer, Damien decides to stay with Celine as the viewer and detective investigate. As the night continues to unravel, the Colonel says the detective took Celine and Damien from him, as it is revealed by the detective that the Colonel had an affair with his best friend's wife and exploited him for money. The Colonel murders the detective, but accidentally shoots the viewer. The viewer falls down the stairs as they are greeted in this blank, dark space of nothingness by the dead body of Mark, and then Damien and Celine. They reveal that Mark has trapped them in this house, and Mark's soul has been possessing Damien's body. The two explain that Mark was in a relationship with Celine, but the Colonel had an affair with her. Mark invited everyone to his manor to get revenge, culminating in a deadly game of Russian roulette with the Colonel. Darkiplier Manor is full of magic, making any soul that dies there trapped in the house. Mark's soul possesses Damien, trapping his soul in the house. During the seance, Mark uses the house's magic to trap Celine's soul in the house as well. Damien then says, "This doesn't have to be the end. You're trapped in here just the same as us, but your body, broken as it may be, it's still out there." Damien and Celine tell the viewer to let their souls into the viewer's body, saying, "We can fix this together." Then Celine says, "I won't force this on you. You have a choice here. Just know this is the only way that you can escape." Using her diviner techniques, the viewer is back in the manor as the Colonel loses his mind thinking this is all a joke, becoming another character in the Markiplier universe, Wolford Wharfstash. But if the Colonel was Wharfstash this whole time and this was just an origin story, who were Celine, Damien, and the viewer? The viewer grabs the cane, which canonically is when another YouTube special happens in this character's mind, the 2019 video titled Damien, and the video starts to glitch. This is the origin of Darkiplier, as the screen shatters and he leaves. Damien's character arc in Who Killed Markiplier and later cemented in Damien is all about choice. His catchphrase is, "Life is ours to choose," but Damien has never been able to choose. When paired with the sometimes more manipulative Celine, who not only has mystical powers as a diviner but encourages choices and the compelling evil and temptatious nature of Markiplier Manor, this creates the character of Darkiplier. With this backstory, Darkiplier becomes less of an evil YouTuber alter ego and more of a morally gray character with villainous tendencies in the other MCU. During live streams, Mark has stated that the house represents his imagination and how he organizes these characters into roles in a story, stating that Damien will be the perfect villain in the Damien special. This self-aware aspect of Markiplier's characters continues on in the other videos like this, such as A Heist with Markiplier, which came out on October 30th, 2019. In this video, Darkiplier makes another appearance in the Ignorance is Bliss ending, chastising his self-awareness of his role as the villain. He says, "People like you only want one thing, and it's disgusting. You want answers. Well, games were always his forte," showing his awareness of the viewer and the times they've met, as well as that he's in a story created by Mark, both the real Mark and the dead actor Mark from Who Killed Markiplier. Out of all of the evil YouTuber alter egos, Darkiplier is one that has definitely had a large impact on his content and how YouTubers create their own characters. Even when the trend was long gone, Darkiplier still found his ways into Mark's many projects.
Top of the morning to you ladies, my name is Jacksepticeye.
I really hope someone understood that joke. Sean McLaughlin, better known as Jacksepticeye, was another content creator whose career took off during this time. Just like Markiplier, Jack started making YouTube videos in 2012, starting with voice impressions, then switching to primarily gaming content. Reaching over 1 billion views and over 3 million subscribers in 2015, Jack's YouTube career was taking off, which can also be accredited to his Let's Play videos of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, but also his incredibly popular playthrough of Undertale, which in total has over 45 million views as of February 2015. 2023. Similarly to Mark, Jack occasionally had scary content on his channel, including reading creepypastas and the occasional off-putting comment during an episode of his Reading Your Comments series, alluding to there being another side to Jack. This is where the idea of the evil Jacksepticeye was born. The start of Antisepticeye. The fans' consensus of Anti was that he was a glitchy internet virus-like demon that, like the fans' version of Darkiplier, desired control over Jack's body. Also like Darkiplier, Antisepticeye was an entirely fan-made concept that was incredibly popular, but it was unclear whether Jacksepticeye would ever acknowledge the character's existence. Well, that is until a little game came out and Jack started playing it on October 10th, 2016. Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. And as expected, FNAF has a large impact on these characters. I was also going to mention Sister Location in the Who Killed Markiplier section because of the whole body snatching part. I also was debating on doing a costume change here, but that would be too predictable, right? I'm not gonna do a costume change. You're in the scooping room. This video is so wild, oh my god. Scooper. I hardly know her. Less than 5 minutes into his first video of his playthrough of Sister Location, this happens.
Give her some motivation. Press the red button.
Throughout his entire playthrough of Sister Location, Jack's face cam continues to be glitchy and cuts to shots of him silently screaming, staring at the camera, or him twitching or pulling at his hair. At the end of the first video, if you turn on the captions, there's a message that states the following: "I'm finally here, finally released from this idiot's mind. Feeble, you know me, Antisepticeye." In the following episodes in his Sister Location series and various other videos Jack released in October of 2016, Jack's face cam would continue having glitchy cuts and creepy imagery. The first we hear Anti talking is in the final episode of the Sister Location series titled Merged Together. He also continues the foreboding messages from Anti at the end of each video, which I will be reading now. "I never die. I'm everywhere." There's also a showing of the storyline in the description of this series. I think FNAF's Sister Location is having a strange effect on me. All of my friends are here to play in FNAF's Sister Location. Wait, who's that? Ending with, "We are together as one now in Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location," in Anti's glitchy font. Throughout his videos during the month of October 2016, Jack teased Anti's debut on his channel.
We all know about Anti, don't we?
All of this foreshadowing and cryptic hints culminate into his Halloween post of the year titled Say Goodbye, with the description reading, "You wanted me, so here I am." Jack has a tradition of carving pumpkins for a video on Halloween, which is how this video starts. As Jack continues to carve the pumpkin, the camera gets glitchier and having more of a green tint, as weird things start happening to Jack as well. About 4.5 minutes in, Jack gets a nosebleed. He leaves for a second, saying, "I never get nosebleeds," when coming back to continue filming. Despite all of the weird and glitchy stuff happening, Jack continues carving his pumpkin. He finishes the jack-o'-lantern, pun intended, but then I'll put a trigger warning for fake violence and blood and a timestamp if you'd like to skip this scene. Alright, but then this happens. Antisepticeye has taken over Jack's body, yelling, "His body was weak! I am here now. This is all your fault. You will listen to me. You all made this happen."
You could have stopped me, but you just watched.
Now he's gone forever. Say goodbye. Later that day, Jack posted his video, Happy Halloween, where he explains that he's not dead. He goes on to talk about how fans created the character of Antisepticeye, even acknowledging the joke I made starting this section that antiseptics are actually good things that kill poisonous fungi and bacteria. He says he wanted to bring in the fan-made character into his channel along with including his love for foreshadowing, horror, and mystery. He then proceeds to thank his editor and his fans for making the whole anti-Easter egg hunt happen. You'd think that after the jig was up for Anti that he wouldn't be in any more of Jack's videos, right? Well...
You were wrong.
On January 20th, 2017, almost 3 months after Say Goodbye was posted, Jack started his playthrough of Detention, a horror adventure game that follows two students in 1960s Taiwan who are trapped in their high school that is haunted by evil spirits. During the second part of the playthrough, one of the main characters, Ray, looks in a mirror, begging that this is all a nightmare, but then...
Forgotten, or just too afraid to remember.
Anti appears every now and again through the detention playthrough, mostly during scary scenes of the game. And then, on March 10th, 2017, Jacksepticeye attended the Penny Arcade Expo, also known as PAX East, in Boston, Massachusetts to host his own panel in front of a live audience. His panel started with a video shown on a projection screen that starts pretty normal, and then...
Did you miss me?
Anti appears saying, "Look at you all, just sitting there. You all thought I was gone, not worrying about anything. You all thought I was gone, but I've been here this entire time, keeping an eye on things, but you stopped paying attention. Well, I hope you're happy. You found someone new and threw me aside, someone to replace me."
I'm not going anywhere. I'm always there, always watching. You can't get rid of me. Enjoy the show.
Iconic. I did not witness this live, but the fan reaction to this was insane. This intro also has some callbacks and foreshadowing to things that were to come very soon after. One of those things is a song featuring Jack that came out on Halloween back in 2016 when the Say Goodbye video was released, which I will discuss later in this video as it relates to another evil alter ego. The other foreshadowing was for a video that I will discuss right now.
Did you miss me?
On July 28th, 2017, Markiplier released the video Darkiplier vs. Antisepticeye. Darkiplier and Antisepticeye meet for the first time, with Darkiplier saying this YouTube ain't big enough for the both of them. He says, "In this world, only one of us can be king." They start to taunt each other, but are interrupted constantly by other evil YouTuber alter egos. In the end, Markiplier's dog Chica kills and eats all of them. This video, while very important to this trend and very popular, having over 16 million views, is completely uncanon to the lore of either character. Less than a week after Darkiplier vs. Antisepticeye was released, Antisepticeye made another new appearance in the video Kill Jacksepticeye Bio Ink Redemption. Released on August 3rd, 2017, the description reads, "So concerned for your little boy. Pay attention next time. Who's next?" After Jack kills Jacksepticeye in the game, Anti takes over saying, "Well, look who's back. I'm in control here. I'm tired of playing pretend. Sick of it. You thought you had him back? They all follow me. I've kept control all this time. Nothing gets rid of me.
I'm eternal, always."
How many times must we go through this? Again and again, going around over and over. Fucking circles. I'm tired of it.
Mocking me with your glitch, bitch.
That doctor thought he could save him, but he was mine. He was weak, just like the rest of them. I've always been in control. You all seem fascinated, and you're just watching, powerless. Who do you think you've been watching all this time?
My puppets. I'm in control. If you want him back so badly, then why don't you save him? This is my world. All of these creatures. There are no strings on me.
Father, when can I leave to be on my own?
And for you.
This isn't over. I wonder what'll happen to your favorite boy next time.
This isn't the end. See you soon.
Exactly a year after the Say Goodbye video, Jack released another pumpkin carving video titled The Jacksepticeye Power Hour, Jameson Jackson. In this video, Jack carves a pumpkin, but it's filmed like a 1920s silent film. Towards the end of the video, Jack cuts his finger, causing Anti to appear with the screen flashing the words, "I'm still here, puppets. Smile. Still alive." The video quickly turns back to normal as Jack does the outro. For the rest of 2017, Antisepticeye made 2 appearances in Jack's livestream. games. In 2018 and early 2019, Antisepticeye made occasional appearances in Jack's videos, most notably his Stories Untold series and his Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted series. On October 13th, 2019, the video Chase premiered, which follows Chase Brody, another one of Jacksepticeye's characters. When Chase searches for a picture in the glove department of his car, supposedly Antisepticeye can be spotted staring at the viewer from the back seat. It is unclear if this is actually Anti. Moving on to October 31st, 2019, another one of Jack's characters, Jameson Jackson, also known as JJ, performs a silent movie-style puppet show. The video starts innocently enough, but as JJ is about to finish up the puppet show, the audience realizes that JJ has strings attached to his wrist, like a marionette. The video starts to glitch out as Antisepticeye possesses JJ, turning him into his own puppet. Anti makes a few appearances in 2020, with the most notable being in the very cryptic video Argentum Aeneas, but completely vanishes in 2021. It wasn't until the next year that Antisepticeye would reappear on October 31st, 2022 in Jack's series The Iris Project. This series follows Chase Brody, who is being held in a secret facility and interviewed by a scientist. Chase recalls being in the woods, but then wasn't all of a sudden, as the interview asks him questions about experiencing deja vu and other strange feelings. The interviewer asks if Chase has ever heard of Alter 114209, which Chase says he has no idea what that is. The interviewer says that lies have been detected and needs further investigation. As Chase is left alone in his cell, the camera starts to get glitchy as Chase says, "No, not this again. No, please go away, please." Then yelling, "What do you want from me?" During the third Hopkins assessment, Chase's composure continues to crack as he sees flashing colors and camera flickers. In the next interview, the interviewer starts to explain that in a small town in England, a stone slab was causing individuals to get bad headaches, nosebleeds, and causing them to hear things that weren't there, leading some to lose their sanity and others down even darker paths. The interviewer states that the Iris Project found the stone slab and it is now contained, but the Iris Project now believes Chase is being affected by a similar item. Then, the interviewer asks if Chase has seen a man in his hallucinations, which makes Chase even more terrified. The interviewer says that the man is Alter 114209, as Chase admits that the man shows him the most evil things, specifically the death of his wife and child. Then, Chase is taken away by the Iris Project to a more secure facility. In the finale of the Iris Project, all of the rooms turn barren and red, as the dead bodies of the Iris Project guards and scientists flood the hallway. A floating entity with a red aura stops on the ground. It's Jack! Or is it? It's Sans! Chase is faced with the monster haunting him. Alter 114209, Antisepticeye.
Hello, Chase.
This, as of right now, is the final appearance of Antisepticeye. Anti's character is so fascinating to me as he truly feels like a villain that is able to exist in many, many scenarios. Like how Damien/Darkiplier's story is all about choices and how manipulation affects choices, Antisepticeye's story is all about control and torment in order to get control. Antisepticeye's main motivation being a desire for control puts him into the stories of Chase Brody and Jacksepticeye as a content creator and a solid antagonist. Jack's inclusion of Antisepticeye in his videos in October 2016 made him one of the first YouTubers to acknowledge their evil YouTuber alter egos and embrace them. Oh, by the way, the next part also involves FNAF, so I will not be costume changing. Or will I? I'm just kidding, I'm not. Antiseptic. I've been holding that choke in this whole time.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Now that we have the main two evil YouTuber alter egos that have so much lore surrounding them out of the way, sadly this one is a lot more simplistic. Matthew Patrick, better known online as Madpat, is the creator of the channels The Game Theorist, The Film Theorist, The Food Theorist, The Style Theorist, along with his live streaming channel GT Live. 2015 was a big year for Madpat as he first debuted the Film Theorist channel and GT Live in May and August of that year respectively, and the Game Theory channel doing its biggest numbers ever because of his very popular theory videos about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
We really can't escape this series regarding this topic, can we? As Madpat was gaining massive popularity during the time of the evil YouTuber alter ego trend, he was not immune to this trend. Thus, the evil Madpat was born. Madpat. Some fans have also called him Antimatter, but for the sake of this video, I'll stick with Madpat. According to the game theorist Wikipedia, the origin of Madpat and his name is unclear, however many speculate the name is a reference to Inspector Gadget. Despite the Wikipedia saying Madpat's origins are unclear, ever since 2015 I've considered Madpat's origin to be the intro to Matt's video, Game Theory, FNAF Mysteries Solved Part 1, which was released on April 26, 2015. Fast forward to October 23rd, 2015, a little video that I will discuss more later was released simply titled Help. In this video, and a video that is a massive component in the next part of this video, Madpat is kidnapped and tortured by another evil YouTuber alter ego that I will discuss in the next part, which to many functions as Madpat's origin story. Then, 8 months later, Madpat would make his debut in the finale of Random Encounters Five Nights at Freddy's musical. For context, the Random Encounters Five Nights at Freddy's musical is a series that started on June 26, 2015, starring Random Encounters and Markiplier, and then later in the series, Nathan Sharp, better known as Nate Wants to Battle on YouTube, and Madpat. The story of this musical follows Markiplier, the night guard trying to survive Five Nights at Freddy's, who then gets arrested for attempted murder on night 2, released the day after night 1. Mark escapes custody, and he is replaced by Nate as the night guard who has worked at Freddy Fazbear's before. Springtrap is let loose in the office, trying to harm Nate and the animatronics. Nate feels sympathy towards them as Springtrap tried to hurt them too, as they discuss how to stop Springtrap. Bonnie says, "Well, I know a guy." Leading into night 4 with Nate and the animatronics going to Mark's house to prove the sketchy stuff he tried to tell the police at Freddy Fazbear's and to stop Springtrap. This leads into June 24th, 2016. Night 5. Mark, Nate, and the animatronics try to get Springtrap wet to ruin the spring locks with the fire extinguisher, but Springtrap was all a setup by purple guy AJ to scare Mark and Nate into quitting their job so he could get more working hours. Mark and Nate agree to let AJ have the night shift as long as he promises to keep the animatronics safe, but then the phone rings. The phone guy congratulates them on surviving Five Nights at Freddy's, but then says, "That really wasn't how I expected all of this to end. See, I really thought you'd all turn on each other by now, but you didn't."
So I guess now I have to drop by the office.
A chainsaw starts to cut through the walls as the phone guy in a bloody bear costume appears.
And finish the job.
It's Matt!
Why, this is a crime scene, and you're the victims.
It's Madpat! Kill him! Matt tells Nate that he's his employer and goes by many names. Phone Guy, Madpat, Scott Coffin, Evil Dirtbag with a chainsaw. He kills AJ with said chainsaw saying,
Why, yes! Actually, that one's my favorite.
He kicks Freddy saying, "You know, I should probably thank you, Mark. None of us would probably be together tonight if you had just listened to what I had told you about the animatronics on the first night. Don't be afraid."
They just want to say hi!
Mark says, "Not all of them," as he releases Springtrap to attack Matt. Springtrap unlocks Phone Guy's flamethrower chainsaw, setting the office on fire. Mark, Nate, and the animatronics escape, as Springtrap and Madpat make like the Living Tombstone song and
Die in the fire!
The next day, Mark and Nate call each other as Nate gets another call.
Hello? Hello?
Madpat reveals he didn't die in the fire and was taken into custody. He then says,
"There's nowhere you can go that I won't find you. There's no place you can hide that I won't kill you."
Nate puts him on hold and throws his phone in a water fountain with Madpat's last words being, "I'll be back, I'll get you all." This is really the last we see of Madpat other than Matt doing a parody of Darkiplier in his video The Secret Life of Markiplier in late 2018, which many consider as Madpat. While Madpat, in my personal opinion, wasn't as much of a canon character and was Matt playing an evil version of the phone guy from FNAF, he still had an impact in the stories of evil YouTuber alter egos, especially the next and fun one I'm about to talk about.
I hope you had the sweetest dreams cause you woke up to a nightmare.
This is my favorite out of all of the YouTuber evil alter egos, and the reason I made this video. Nathan Smith, better known by his stage names Nathan Sharp or Nate Wants to Battle, started his YouTube channel in 2012 by making music covers and parodies of top 40 pop songs about video games like Legend of Zelda and Pokemon. In late 2014, Nate announced he would start making original music, mostly inspired by video games. On November 29, 2014, Nate dropped his first original fan song on YouTube, Mangled, which was inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again! Again and again and again and again. Mangled was a major success. In the next year of 2015, Nate would continue to release Five Nights at Freddy's inspired songs including No More, Salvaged, and Nightmare, earning him more popularity on YouTube. Then, in October 2015, Nate posted this image on his Twitter account captioning it, "This light bulb was powered by the spirits of dead children," as well as making this image his profile picture. Then, on October 23rd, 2015, the video Help was released.
Hello, my name is Matthew Patrick. I live in Los Angeles, California. I don't know who is gonna see this, if you'll see this, but please, if anyone finds it.
He says the night before he was talking to someone and now he's somewhere he doesn't know. Then, he arrives.
God, I think he's coming back. Please, if you find this, look for me. Matthew Patrick. Nothing.
Can't leave you alone.
Let me go!
5 minutes.
Let me go!
Then you just couldn't behave.
This video was to promote Nate's 5 Nights of Five Nights, a series where for the final 5 days of October, Nate would release a new FNAF-related video every day, culminating in a new song on Halloween. As the video ends, Nate with the same makeup and light bulb as the Twitter picture appears as he laughs. 5 days later, almost a year after the song was released, Nate released a music video for a remastered version of Mangled. The video starts with Madpat tied up with a blindfolded mouthpiece that's meant to resemble Mangle from Five Nights at Freddy's, which is how the song got its name. Then, the phone next to him starts to ring. Nate walks over, putting his hand on his shoulder and putting the phone to his ear. Nate, imitating the phone guy, says, "Hello, hello? Okay, listen. I have no idea where you are or how you got there. What I do know is that guy you were seen with last night, he's bad news. Look, some good news, if you're hearing this, chances are you're still alive. Look, just stay calm and, if you can, avoid him at all costs. Do your best to hold out until morning."
Please just stay alive.
Nate appears with his black and blue teary-eyed makeup which resembles the marionette from FNAF as he torments Madpat. Nate's character in this video is very theatrical, threatening, and a little scary and sadistic. Matt pleads as at the end of the video, Nate leaves Matt in the room as he maniacally laughs. Nate playing a sadistic and overdramatic villain in this music video led his fans to create an evil alter ego of Nate Wants to Battle, which was named Natemare. As Natemare was a fan-made creation like all of these other alter egos, fans speculated when Natemare would appear in his songs and covers, and his fanbase collectively claimed certain songs and covers of his as Natemare videos. First of these was Nate's cover of Panic at the Disco, Emperor's New Clothes, released on November 26, 2015. In this cover, Nate sports a similar black button-up shirt like he wore in Mangled, as he acts rather animated and more evil, also including a talking skull at one point to parody the original Emperor's New Clothes music video. Other songs that many consider to be connected in some way to Natemare were Ashes and Dead Silence, 2 songs inspired by the Undertale genocide route, Enjoy the Show, a song inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's sister location featuring Jacksepticeye, which is what Anti referenced in the PAX East panel intro.
Enjoy the show.
Branded from Nate's album Sandcastle Kingdoms, and Blood and Ink, a song about Bendy and the Ink Machine. Nate seemingly enjoyed the character as he titled one of his merch t-shirts the Natemare merch, which was a t-shirt to promote his physical CD, Enjoy the Show. However, in 2018, Nate would do something that none of the people I've mentioned in this video have ever done. On April 19th, 2018, to promote his second studio album, Paid in Exposure, Nate dropped the second single off the album, Phantom, starring the voice of Steven Universe himself. And Steven! Zach Callison. Nate watches Zach try and fail many times to do magic tricks in a red-lit lounge, as well as performing the song on stage. However, like Mangled, Nate is playing a character in this video. The unique thing that Nate did that no one else in this video did was make up their own evil alter ego, which Nate named Phantom. After the song came out, Nate discussed in an interview how the inspiration for the song and music video was how he views his brain and imagination like a Tim Burton movie world, incredibly stylized and scary where he can sometimes be the villain. This is what inspired the creation of Phantom, who he plays in the video. Later, Zach finds the book of Phantom, which is full of magic. After reading the book, Zach is able to do magic tricks with sparks and fire. However, at his next magic show, Zach accidentally sets the stage on fire. Then, Zach comes face to face with Phantom as he gives Zach a contract. He says, "So you're saying if I sign this, I can put on the perfect show?" Phantom replies, "Kid, if you sign, you'll put on a show they'll never forget." Phantom rolls out the contract and tells Zach the many, many places he needs to sign the contract. After Zach signs everything, Phantom tells him,
"Now, get out there. Go get him, kid."
And then giving us yet another amazing evil laugh. Zach gives an incredible performance as Phantom watches him intently, smirking. Zach's final trick is disappearing in front of the audience, but where does he reappear, you may ask? Nate's concept of a Tim Burton-esque world representing his mind and anxiety would soon follow in his music video for The Wrecked and the Worried, released December 19th, 2018. However, this is the last we'd ever see of Natemare or Phantom. Natemare and Phantom are my favorite YouTuber evil alter egos, mostly because of my own personal biases, because I love Nate's music, and I have for a long time, but I love how theatrical both of the characters and their storylines were. And those are the main evil YouTuber alter egos I wanted to discuss in this video. But now, the scooper only hurts for a moment. Hello again. I truly don't know what happened there, but I'm back. Now, a huge part about this trend were the many fan fictions written about these characters. I have chosen 3 fan fictions that I will be reading for the first time right here. I found these on Archive of Our Own, aka AO3. Also, I will be replacing any curse words or scandalous language with FNAF jump scare sounds. So, let's get into these fan fictions.
Was that the bite of 87?
Mark glances up at the poster for the horror play you elected to see. Should I do a deep voice for him? I think I have to, because Mark has a really deep voice. I've never actually seen this play before. I don't even know who made it, so could be a fun adventure. He gives you a sweet smile. Let's give it a try. The teller at the counter snorts, adding sarcastically, "Good luck." You see, he's glaring right at Mark, as if he'd done something wrong. You and Mark engage puzzled looks for a moment, then shrug it off. "That was weird," you mutter as Mark leads you into the theater. "He's probably having a bad day," Mark allowed forgivingly. "I mean, it can't be great to sweep floors all day and clean toilets." "True," you reply. After all, you remember, well, your first job, which definitely wasn't any kind of fun either. "So, Mr. Fishback," you say, affecting a posh English accent, "do tell your choice to adjourn for post dining delights at the theater." I can't read. The theater. This is the start of you all hearing my fake British accent. I'm realizing that now. He laughs and immediately launches into a feigned humble brag. "I'm a patron of the arts," he says with a dramatic flourish of his hand. Look at what I literally just did. We love this is a cold read, and I'm dominating. I'm not even an actor, I'm a tech person. "I certainly love new plays, new theaters, new artistes," he grins. "You know, it strokes the embers in my soul," he declares with a stage actor's flair for drama. You both laugh together, and you find yourself glad to be on this date with him. He's been genuinely nice and funny throughout the evening, and brief momentary hiccups aside, he's so adorable you could just kiss him right now. Down, girl, you mentally scold yourself. Save that for later. Oh, damn. You find your seats, front and center to the stage, and share the container of popcorn as you continue to chat. There's an audible creak, the curtain being pulled back, and Mark exclaims, "Oh, it's starting." You glance at the stage, but other than a white table, there's nothing there. You turn to look at Mark and he's gone! Where'd he go, you wonder? Alarm bells firing off in your head. Though there's literally no one around besides yourself, you're compelled into a high state of panic, as more primitive instincts warn you of impending danger. Oh no, this can't be good. Famous last words. The shadows in the theater suddenly loom large and sweep their way throughout the theater. An unearthly chill turns your breath into fog, and a high-pitched ringing assaults your ears. Then, he's there. It's in bold. He looks like Mark, but he's definitely not. The posture is all wrong. His eyes are as dark as the deepest abyss and his smile is sharp like broken glass. You feel like a moose caught in a hypnotic gaze of a cobra as he approaches, looming over you. I don't think cobras and moose interact in nature. But then again, I could be dumb. I need to do like a really deep voice for Darkiplier. Did you miss me? Your breath catches in your throat. The thing that's been in your dreams since the day you met Mark. What you thought was just a nightmare caused by predate jitters. He's here and he's real. But no, you haven't only seen him before in your mind the last few weeks. There's been a looming shadow haunting you since your parents died a few years ago. Damn. He's the shadow you feared all along and never hoped to see in the waking world. He is the darkness, and he has come for you. Without waiting for your response, this thing that looks like Mark but isn't says, I've missed you very much. I've been waiting a long time to see you again. The question is out before you can stop it. You wanted to see me. Why? His smile, apparently meant to be kind, isn't all that comforting to you right now. Because I have so much I wanted to share with you. So much I want you to see. His hands clench and, because they're braced against your armrests, there's an audible crack of the wood underneath his grip. I've been pushed aside, replaced, mocked. And then he had the gall to not invite me to his little adventure with you. No more, never again. He snarls. It's my turn now. Your turn, you parroting confusion. His expression looks downright murderous now as he stands at his full height, his unnaturally deep voice now colder than the temperature of the room. I've been waiting patiently. He promised he would let me in again. He straightens his suit jacket. I'm tired of giving people a choice. But I suppose I could give you one last option. You whip your head around in startlement as 4 different doors simultaneously swing open. 3 are couched in shadows, 1 bathed in light. Take your pick. Anything of 4 different choices. More than he could have ever given you. And let's see how far this rabbit hole really goes. He sneers then. Take your pick. Show me what you've got. And maybe we'll have a good date after all. Your instincts scream at you to head for the light, and you immediately make a break for it, suddenly grateful you've chosen to wear flats instead of heels for your date. Hoping against hope that freedom is in sight. Hoping against... You careen into a halt and grow inwardly. He's already there, waiting, but he's marginally less imposing, seated at a table with a bottle of wine and matching glassware. Less imposing, but not by much. You find yourself drawn to the table, almost against your will. You lower yourself into the chair across from him. Good choice, he tells you, but you feel weirdly proud to earn his approval. Why? He just scared you. But aside from his sudden and unexpected appearance and his apparent anger towards Mark, he hasn't actually done anything to you. You don't quite feel safe, but you're no longer frightened, at least. You manage a quiet, demure, thank you. But why do we need to choose in life? He wonders aloud. If dinner is what you want, then I can provide, and I can take you wherever you'd like to go. I can especially take you places you don't want to go. You ponder this for a long moment. He seizes the change in your expression and smiles at you. Suddenly, he no longer seems scary, but nice. Intimidating and intense, but nice. You belatedly remember Mark, and while you briefly feel bad that you haven't thought about him before now, you have a feeling he's alright. It's exciting, knowing there are endless possibilities waiting for you. His voice becomes soft, like a lover's caress. I can give you anything your heart desires. You gaze at him for a long moment. I know you, but I don't. I don't even know your name. someone like you has a name, but I remember a dark shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. It was you, wasn't it? He smiles. Yes. You say I am dark. Then let that be sufficient as my name. What is this voice I'm doing for him? I know who you are, he says, cutting you off before you complete your introduction. I've known for a long time. He then says your name, and it sounds more like a lion's purr. I've been waiting a long time to get some personal time between us. So now that we're here together, we can really get to know each other. It doesn't sound so bad, actually, but still. What's the catch, you ask? I mean, it kind of sounds like a supernatural let's make a deal. You already chose what was behind him before, he points out slyly, and you laugh in spite of yourself. Dark, the scary supernaturally powered guy, actually has a sense of humor. Who knew? There's no catch, he then tells you gently. You just need to let me in. It's as simple as that. Okay. He raises an eyebrow. Vine boom. Okay. I thought I would have to do quite a bit more to convince you. Genuinely seems bemused by that. And you laugh. Look, you promised me paradise on a silver platter. What girl wouldn't want that? What? Indeed. And his rejoinder? Rejoinder? I hardly know her. Clink your wine glasses together. And that's the end.
Honey, I'm trash. I am such an absolute whore.
Chapter 1. Mark had been watching Jack from afar for a while. He was interested in him, intrigued even, which was something he never really experienced in people before. People were usually so boring, so dull. If they were unique in the wrong way, a way that he disliked. Jack was different though. He's such a nice young man, both in the looks department and how he executed the work that he did. Mark liked his precision and the way his hands looked covered in blood. What? Jump scare, that was a plot twist. He liked how oblivious he was to the fact that Mark had been patiently watching him for over a year, waiting for a good time to introduce himself. So Mark in this situation is Joe Goldberg from You. Basically. And then Jack is like the one he's stalking. But Jack is like Love from You, basically, if you've seen that show. Okay. After so much time, he finally found it. Jack was laying on his bed in his apartment, on the verge of sleep where he heard a noise, subtle, but still there. His eyes snapped open and he slid out of bed while at the same time reaching for the knife he kept near him. He moved to where he heard the faint sound of footsteps, knife clenched in his hand. No one ever came to his apartment this late at night, and if they did, they would probably be trying to kill him. He wasn't going to die today or anytime soon if he could help it. We love the determination, but also would probably be trying to kill him. Jack, has this happened before? Do you need help? Do you need assistance? The noise abruptly stopped, and he couldn't hear anything no matter how hard he channeled his hearing. It was like the man vanished, but he wasn't letting down his guard. Then he felt a hand at his neck, grabbing from behind, and he hadn't even realized the knife was gone until he gripped onto the person's with both of his own hands. He pulled the hand from his neck and bit it hard before turning around and kneeing the person in the stomach, hearing a quiet grunt that sounded like it came from a man. A lot just happened there. He couldn't see very much, only street lights barely illuminating both of their figures. But he knew the man now had the knife in his hand. He tried to think tactically, but didn't have the chance because the man came at him. He tried to dodge, but it was like the man knew exactly what he was going to do because he still slammed into him, pinning him to the floor, the man's legs on his, one hand holding both of Jack's wrists above his head. I'm worried. This guy was too good and he was going to die because of it. He was going to die because, for whatever reason, this man was trying to kill him and he was better than Jack. He was beaten. The man held the knife to his neck, pressing lightly. He saw, why am I saying this so undiscreetly? The man held the knife to his neck. He saw Jack open his mouth, about to say something. Don't speak. smirking, though the other couldn't see. He leaned closer to Jack, his face only an inch or so away from his. Next time, try not to stop to think. Do and think, multitask. I'm not disappointed though. In fact, I'm glad you got in a hit and a bite. Feisty one, aren't you? His voice was teasing and playful, yet dark and wicked. He trailed the knife to Jack's collarbone, pressing just enough for him to bleed, not surprised when he didn't hear a peep from Jack. His pride too strong to show pain to someone he most likely considers an enemy and a threat. He leaned down and licked the blood away, sucking lightly at the cut to get all the liquid he could. Is he a vampire? What is happening? Savoring the metallic taste on his tongue. The taste so perfect and so addictive, but he knew he couldn't take any more. For now. Is this vampires? He moved back to face Jack, whose emotions weren't apparent on his face, but it was all in his eyes, and he almost laughed when he saw it. The mixed feelings of shock, arousal, oh no, and interest. Remember me. Remember my voice. Remember my name. Mark. You're crying over a guy named Mark? He stood up, leaving Jack there and headed for the door. Oh, and by the way, when someone is inches from your face, you should bite their Why not make him British? Then bite your nose off. You should bite their nose off, then try to take their weapon and use it against them. Though, I guess if you would have done that, I would have had to kill you. He stuck the knife in the wall and then left, but not before giving a toodles as a goodbye. Jack stayed where he was on the floor, trying to comprehend what just happened. He put his hand on his collarbone where the cut was, feeling that the blood was still flowing. He brought his fingers to his lips to suck off the blood, trying not to think about what the other man must have tasted and how he must have felt tasting it. He stood up to get a bandage, all while thinking that he had a new guy around and he wasn't sure if this problem of his was necessarily a threat or not. What he did know is that his name was Mark and he apparently really liked blood, which meant one wrong move could be the end. Jack was chasing after him, his victim. He made sure so they're both serial killers, or just like, they're both murderers. Like assassins, I guess. We don't know if this is like a profession. There's been no exposition set in place for this. He made sure they ended up turning the wrong direction, bringing him further away from safety and closer to the dark, dead ends of the alley. Some people were so stupid, running into a place like that instead of going to a crowded area. I mean, I wouldn't be judging people, you kill people. He'd done kills here many times, and they were always successful simply because he was smarter than the person he was hunting. As he trapped them in the corner, he thought of Mark. Mark, who he hadn't seen for a week after the first time they met. Anger built up in him suddenly, and when he grabbed the person by the neck, squeezing to cut off their screams, he imagined Mark, not his face, but his voice. The only image he had of the man was a dark, well-built, shadowy figure. He gripped his knife tightly and stabbed the man in his stomach. Questions going through his mind as he repeatedly stabbed the man, letting the warm blood pour over his hand. Why didn't you kill me? Why did you come to my house? What do you want with me? Why me? What's your plan? Am I a toy to you? Who the are you? Jack brought his bloody hand up to the shaking man's face, holding it. What do you want from me? He asked the question, not talking to the man, but rather to himself, to the Mark that was in his mind. He tossed the man on the ground, planning on letting him bleed out. The whole Mark thing was messing with him, and he'd only met the guy once. It was the fact that he attacked him, but didn't kill him and was giving him tips for next time. Or maybe it was the fact that he cut his skin and drank his blood. Either way, he was pissed off because he was consuming his thoughts most of the time. He growled and kicked the man in the stomach, letting out more of his anger. What the he yelled, sighing when he realized the man passed out. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He needed to relax. Come on, Jack. Don't let me ruin your fun. Jack spun around and saw Mark standing only a few feet away from him. What do you want? He was beyond angry now. His only desire was to stab him and watch him bleed, but he restrained himself because he knew that it wouldn't end well for him. You, he answered simply. taking a step closer, cackling when he saw Jack grip his knife tighter and raise it slightly. We both know you won't stab me. Yeah? And how do you know that? Mark smiled at him, an evil smile that made Jack's spine tingle. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been watching you for a while, and I like you. There's something about you that's different from all the others. He stepped even closer, reaching out for the knife, taking it with ease. Just as he thought, Jack was beginning to understand that he shouldn't try to hurt him. He looked at the knife and grinned, throwing it off to the side and taking Jack's hand instead, looking at it before looking up at him. I've seen you kill many times before. The way you handle your victims. Today wasn't like you because you were angry. Angry because I was all you could think about. Am I right? Jack watched him and nodded hesitantly. Mark nodded. I've watched you get your hands soaked in blood, beating up your victims and killing them in a deliciously beautiful way. I've watched you screw up and get yourself hurt. I've watched you grow over the past year. Year? You've been watching me for a year and decided to show your face now? I thought you were ready. Ready for what? Jack, I want you to come with me. I want to hunt with you, kill with you. Get rid of all the people that do you harm, that cause you trouble or hold you back. You deserve to do what you want and be who you want. No one's stopping you. He brought one of Jack's fingers up to his mouth and started to suck away the blood. He hummed and then smirked at Jack. Doesn't taste nearly as good as yours. He spoke so casually, darkness thickened his voice. What do you say? I imagine he says that like, this is all because of Curtis Connor, the 1930s like newsy, like, what do you say? Jack knew he needed to make the right choice. Like he thought before, it's all over if he makes one wrong move or one mistake. Yeah, alright, I'll go with you. Promise to stay with me? I promise. Do you promise to take me, Mark Fishback, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part? Was he fucking serious? Wedding vows? He wanted to roll his eyes, but he knew Mark would see this and he had to remember. One wrong move and it could kill him. Yes, I promise. Mark tilted his head, looking at him expectantly, a small smile on his face. He was actually serious. I do. He couldn't believe that Mark just made him do that and was now grinning at him. And I take you, my lovely Sean, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, and blah, blah, blah. He grabbed Jack's jaw roughly, intending not to hurt, but to command. And now you're mine. You got that? You're mine, Jack. And you'll listen to what I say, or else. What else could Jack do but listen? Now we're getting into fanfic territory. That now you're mine, that very fanfic. There's more than one chapter in this and I feel like we have to like read through it. Chapter 2. Mark guided Jack to his house, trusting that he would follow. After all, he did know where he lives and he'd been following him for a year. He knew how to find him. He opened the door and gave a gesture for Jack to go in first before he walked inside himself, closing and locking the door behind them. Jack looked around, finding that the small house looked fairly normal on the inside, considering the type of person Mark was, though he couldn't really say much. It's not like the apartment he lived in himself was covered in blood and torture tools. Get used to this place because this is where you'll be living from now on. What? What? It's not like anyone's gonna miss you, right? I have friends. Then get rid of them. Jack shook his head. No, I can't get rid of them. They haven't done anything wrong, anything to hurt me. And your other victims have? Jack was silent, knowing that Mark was trying to prove a point. Tusk, tusk, tusk. Mark shook his head. I just smeared my makeup. Mark shook his head in disappointment. You see, that's one of your flaws. You can kill others whether they're innocent or not. But once you get attached to someone, you can't let them go. Don't you have friends? I did, he sighs. Then they found out what I'm like, what I do. And they wanted to try to help me. He laughed. Can you believe that helping me would have been letting me go do what I want, joining me, or just off if they didn't like it. But I know now that that is impossible. People like them, the average human, they can't do what we do, feel like we feel. They can't understand it. I can guarantee the same thing is gonna happen to you. They're gonna find out and then you're gonna have to kill them. Or I'll do it. This is just textbook manipulation. I mean, I did say in my section that Darkiplier is like a textbook manipulator. Like, one of my friends once said seduction leads to destruction. This fanfiction. I doubt he will watch this video, but hi friend. Jack stared at him, shock apparent on his face. This time, his emotions seeming to leak from his eyes to his face. And what is this leaking affecting my eyes? Is the oil that is dripping me this is a cry? Shout out if you know that song. That song's very good. Showing Mark his true thoughts. I want the best for you. They're the people holding you back. Manipulation. Oh my god. He put both of his hands on the sides of Jack's neck and pressed their foreheads together. Jack suddenly realizing how close they actually were. Mark's voice grew quieter. If you kill them, you'll be free. Jack's defense was broken. His eyes shined over with tears. Jack. He spoke the name sweetly and lovingly, brushing Jack's cheek with his thumb, tracing his bottom lips, staring into his eyes. Something changed in that moment. Everything Jack had thought before seemed to vanish by staring into Mark's loving eyes. Those aren't loving. Feeling his tender touch. What is this alliteration? So when Mark whispered, "Trust me," he did, more than anything or anyone else. The next day, they started their plans on when and how they were going to kill Jack's friends. Damn, that was quick. That escalated quickly. There was a plan being made because Mark felt the need to make this special and to make sure it went perfectly. Everything exactly how he wanted it to. And so he could get exactly what he wanted out of this experience. There were 3 of them, 1 woman and 2 men. Mark had told him he didn't want him to say or even think their names. Maybe it was because he didn't want to think of the people they were planning to kill as human, or maybe it was just that because he didn't want Jack to think about them as people he knew. Either way, the only thing they focused on was where they would be at what times, who they'd be with, and how much force they'd have to use to get them to go with them. Of course, Jack could always ask them to meet up, even suggested it. But Mark said it would be best if they get them with his methods. Mark didn't exactly explain what his methods were, but Jack wasn't going to ask. As long as they killed them quickly, it was the only thing he wanted. He would rather not kill them at all, but Mark's promise of success, of being free, that was what pulled him in and made him set on getting this done. Successful in what? Free of what? He didn't think about it. Just the words and their meaning went straight to Jack's head, so he listened to Mark's plan and agreed. In the evening, Mark ordered pizza over the phone because Jack complained about there only being snacks that he was sick of. He was strangely delighted by the way Mark's voice sounded so much sweeter when he was talking to the person on the phone. But at the same time, it made him cringe because he knew how Mark usually acted. So smug, so proud, so honestly creepy. To hear him change his voice to sound nice to outsiders was just a strange feeling. He wasn't sure if he liked it or not. He didn't really have to worry about it though, because right when Mark hung up, he was back to normal. It was hard to him how different of a face, of a tone, Mark had when he was dealing with normal people. Normal people. To differ him and Mark from normal people almost made it seem like they weren't human. Though he couldn't really argue with it if someone said that he wasn't normal. He figured that out a long time ago. He isn't even close to normal, and Mark seems to be even further from normal than he is. Though normalcy is kind of overrated. What are you talking about? Jack jumped, but he didn't move from his spot. He hadn't realized Mark was literally right in front of his face, staring at him as if he was trying to look inside his mind. Jesus Christ! He breathed out, "Nothing." Well, that's a lie. I was just thinking about us. Us? That was the wrong way to put it. I just mean the plan. I was just thinking about the plan. He spoke slightly quicker, trying to rephrase what he'd said. He was losing his composure. You're losing your composure. And apparently Mark noticed. He didn't know why. He was usually good at being calm, collected, and controlled, but maybe because Mark, a guy who knew a lot about him, could kill him at any second and was mentally and physically stronger than him, was literally staring at him from an inch away like a weirdo. But he couldn't do it. Maybe it's because your face weirds me out. Mark grinned. Good. Good? Yeah, good. I don't need you to tell me you like me or my face. He leaned closer, just enough, so that their lips brushed together, relishing in the way Jack's breath hitched and the way he froze up. How did you know the truth, he whispered, then pulling back and walking away, going to get a drink, completely ignoring that just happened. Jack stood there, trying to not look like a complete idiot in Mark's eyes. He knew Mark was being a smug bastard at the moment, sipping his drink, being an he wanted to punch him for it. What? It was how he showed affection. Time to sleep. Jack looked at Mark, confused until he saw that it was almost 11 at night. He nodded, going to Mark's room, the same place he'd slept the night before. He got settled into the bed. The weight shifted when Mark got in beside him. At first, he questioned it, but really, it was either sleep here or sleep on the couch, which hurt to even sit on for too long. He laid comfortably, staying only on the right side of the bed as to not intrude Mark's sleeping space. He was almost asleep, but was gently awoken when he felt an arm around his waist and he was suddenly being pulled just a little bit until he felt his whole back against something warm and solid. Was Mark really spooning him right now? He wanted to turn his head back to look at him. Why did I say look like that? Look at him and see if he was sleeping. But he found it was going to be impossible to move that much without breaking something. Mark was holding him too tightly for him to be able to actually move, and he could feel his breath right on the back of his neck, so he figured Mark was literally right there. He decided in the end to just go to sleep. The only actual problem he had was that it was Mark spooning him, and that explained it all. But overall, he was really warm and felt protected and loved, even though he was pretty sure that was the opposite of what he was when with this man. Though he had to admit to himself that he did find Mark interesting, not to mention crazy, but also attractive in his own way, and still, for some reason, had something in his mind that just told him to trust him. It's manipulation. Like, I'm gonna keep a count now of how many times I've said, that's manipulation. And when he felt a light kiss at the back of his neck just before he fell asleep, that trust seemed to grow. Get up. Jack opened his eyes, suddenly realizing how cold he was. What? Why? We're going out today. For what exactly? He turned to look at Mark, seeing the absolute evil look, and he knew not to mess with him. To kill someone. At first, Jack thought he meant to do their plan, to kill his friends, but he got up and got dressed in different clothes that were Mark's because he wouldn't let him go back to his apartment. Yet this man doesn't have any of his, he doesn't have any of his possessions. This is... I am feeling feelings that are not positive. He realized that he wouldn't have just said that they were going to kill someone. That's what they were going to do. No, this was Mark saying that they were going to kill together for the first time. Someone, maybe random, or maybe someone that Mark had been wanting to kill. He had no idea. But either way, it was going to happen. They left the house together, Mark not saying a word as they walked side by side. He held out a knife to Jack, which he took and he hid just as quickly. He didn't need to say anything because he knew Jack would understand. No, who are we going to kill? No, why are you giving me this knife? No, why are we going to kill? Just complete silence. And Jack did understand. The look on Mark's face said it all. He was going to kill someone and Jack was going to help him. End of story. As they started getting closer to a house, Mark started to speak. There's gonna be 3 people, 2 young women and 1 middle-aged man. One woman will most likely be sitting on the couch, watching TV in the living room to the left, the other one reading a newspaper on the table, not far from it. The man isn't something you have to worry about. Just let me take care of him. But I need you to distract the women. Keep them in one place. Kill them if you want, I don't care. Before Jack even had time to speak or think, they were at the house and Mark kicked open the door, leaving Jack's sight in an instant. He remembered, though, the woman to the left doing what Mark said they should be, though they were startled out of their positions. He didn't hesitate, grabbing the clothed woman and slitting her throat. Nice and quick, so he could focus on the other woman not escaping. Mark said he could kill them if he wanted, and he wouldn't let that chance go by, especially not if it meant they had to babysit them otherwise. He threw the first woman down and went for the other, but I'm thinking so many things, and none of them are positive. She ran right for the phone, and he almost laughed at her, trying to call the police when there was someone only a few feet from you who was about to kill you was something that made you die quicker. Not that he was complaining. He grabbed her by the hair, the easiest thing to get a hold of. She squirmed and punched him and kicked him and kneed him in the groin. It only made him angry, and he grabbed her neck, squeezing tightly and pushing her up against the wall. What? The next line is, oh, he missed this. I get it, he's an evil character, but what the fuck? Usually he lured people late at night that were outside in the streets. The last time he actually went to someone's house in the morning and just intruded on their life and killed them cold-blooded in their house was when he was in high school years ago. What the fuck is happening? Gave him an adrenaline rush that no other kind of kill had. Her screams were gone, replaced by choking noises of her trying to breathe. She clawed at his arm, and it only made him enjoy it more. I'm using this as a shield. The slight pain of her nails against his skin only making him take in just how much she was trying to hold on to her life. Then something came to mind. Why would Mark say he doesn't care whether they die or not? He knew that if he said that, Jack would go in and kill them. Did that mean that Mark wanted them dead too, or was he really leaving it up for Jack to decide? I mean, if it is a Markiplier thing, it is a thing about choice. Jack almost laughed at the thought. Mark leaving it up to him? Yeah, right. Mark wanted them to die, and that made Jack even more happy to do this. I mean, that also makes sense with Antisepticeye, because of, like, he's more of like a violent person than like a manipulator. At this point, the woman was losing too much oxygen to be able to function correctly. He wondered if he should just kill her, so he could see how Mark was doing. If he was done or if he was in trouble. Who was he kidding? Mark could handle everything by himself. But still, to see Mark kill someone was something he hadn't seen before. He was curious as to how he did it. When he realized that the woman had passed out, he sighed. Killing her wouldn't be as fun, but he didn't care. Now all he wanted was to see Mark kill the man if he hadn't done it. Dropped the woman, not wanting to bother with her at the moment, and instead headed to where he now realized he could hear noise. He went up the stairs quickly, but quietly, and saw Mark out of the corner of his eye in a bedroom. He turned and walked a little closer, but not enough to distract him. There was a man on the floor, Mark on top of him like he was on Jack, except he was stabbing the man repeatedly in the chest. A lot of chest stabbing in this. I could tell he was already dead, but the man being only dead weight and blood at this point. After another stab, Mark noticed Jack and got up, panting, blood all over his hands, face, and gloves. Clothes. His hair messy, a cut on his cheek. He looked at Jack. How's the girls? One dead, the other unconscious. Mark nodded, still catching his breath. I have to clean up. Take care of the unconscious one and then do what you need to do. There was silence for a moment and neither of them moved. Now. Jack quickly went back down the stairs, doing as he was told. You could tell from the moment Mark told him where they'd all be and how they were going to do this that this was no random encounter. But all he could wonder was what exactly these people, and that guy in particular, did to get under his skin. I got you under my skin. Shout out to TVXQ, apparently. Cleaned up the scene, Mark assuring Jack that they'd have time before the people's brother, who lived with them, but Jess was at work at the time or anyone else came back, and then they left. Jack noticed that Mark seemed much more relaxed, like he'd let out stress, and he understood that. This wasn't even Jack's kill, this was Mark. Mark's revenge on something, someone, and Jack felt relief from it. One thing that made him disappointed when they left was that they had to clean everything, including themselves. Mark had looked more attractive than Jack could ever want to admit. He looked messed up, like he had some sort of struggle because that man fought back. He was bloody, out of breath. His usually clean hairstyle was messy. He'd gotten hurt. Jack could still see the cut on Mark's cheek. It wasn't bleeding anymore, but it was still there. He could tell Mark put some sort of alcohol on it to help clean it. He didn't know how he got it exactly, but it seemed like it would leave a scar, even if it was a light one. For having just teamed up to kill 3 people, the 2 of them were content, walking back home, holding hands. Not for any romantic attraction, but just to know that they did it. It was real. They were both still there. Both still in this together. There's more than 2 chapters. I don't want this video to drag out too long, so I will read that more, and I will read that in my free time and probably give a full review on like my Instagram story or something. Moving on.
There's literally a cage hanging from the freaking the house, and there's bones. There's bones in there.
This was supposed to be fun. And it had been, Mark supposed. A group of them had been invited out, the new FNAF haunted house attraction. Himself, Jack, Nate, and Matt. I assume that was supposed to say a group of them had been invited out too. Spelling errors already in the second sentence. Himself, Jack, Nate, and Matt. They'd stared up at the entrance, at the sign that read Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and giggled all together as they filtered in. The animatronics had been goofy looking, but still scary in their own way, as usual. The young men had wandered somewhat separately, but as the journey slowly crept on, Mark found Jack clutching his hand, and Nate's skinny fingers curled tightly in the back of his shirt, and heard grumbling as Matt plastered himself to Nate's back. "Excuse me," he called over his shoulder. "Why exactly are you all making me go first?" Okay, so Madpat's the scaredy cat of the group. Listen, I have read some haunted house or like spooky story fan fictions. There's always a scaredy cat in the group. There was a beat of silence. "Because you're the biggest and scariest," came Nate's muffled reply into his shoulder. As if in agreement, Jack pulled him tighter to his side. "So?" Mark planted his feet firmly as the monkeys at his back started to nudge him forward. The monkeys? Monkey. "Matt's the oldest. He should go first." Matt laughed nervously. "Buddy, I'm not even the scariest thing if you stuffed me into a bag of marshmallows." That's a reference to the Chubby Bunny challenge that him and Nate did. That was the start of their ship. Another moment of silence passed. The only sounds were the ambience of the attraction and Nate's derisive snort. "He's got a point," Jack piped up, squeezing his arm around Mark's back. "Can't we just get a move on, please?" Awkwardly, the 4 shuffled forward. They'd done this before, they reminded themselves. They'd all played these games more times than they could count. Knew the sounds of shuffling and deep giggles by heart. And still, when they came to the display of FNAF 1's security office, they huddled together even closer as they leaned in to check on the monitors. "Oh my God, Matt," Jack murmured as Mark heard Nate wheeze as he squeezed even harder. "What?" Mac's voice was shaky. There was a long pause. "It's the fan, Matthew." The deadpan glare was practically tangible as Jack snorted hard, dissolving into giggles. "Hardy har har," Matt finally replied, but smiling. "Shut your clover mouth." "Is that supposed to mean something offensive?" Jack laughed, struggling to turn his chin over Mark's shoulder to look at Matt through all their limbs. "You need better insults if that's the best you got." "Ooh, sick burn, bro." Mark mopped, half listening as he leaned in closer to the monitors. "Are these all functional?" Or, as he clicked on a different camera, the video cut off with an all too familiar low screech. Deathly silent. The 4 exchanged quick glances before darting their gazes to the doors on either side of the office. Nothing. "Did we check Pirates Cove?" Mark barely got the question out before the others gave their they spelled empathetic wrong. Empathetic, yes. Hesitantly, ears straining for the sound of shuffling, felted feet, he clicked on the camera for Pirates Cove, hoping to see the purple curtain drawn close, or, at the very most, lit eyes peering out from behind it. The curtain was wide open. he breathed. Do we shut the door? Do we run? No one answered, their eyes glued on the left-hand door. They entered the office from the right. They would have to go through Foxy's path to continue onward. The silence was broken by Nate shaking his head violently and Matt squawking from the other hairs got up his nose. Guys, it's just a haunted fucking house, he reminded them, stretching his fingers as he uncurled them from Matt's shirt. Yeah, they did a damn good job and it's scary as shit. But we gotta keep... Why is Nate the one swearing? Like, I mean, yeah, they all swear except maybe Matt, but like, I mean, Nate does swear quite a bit in his gaming videos, which is when this was made. Now Nate just makes like alternative music. His sentence was cut off by a deafening screech, a flash of tattered red and a streak of silver. They froze and broke into chaos all at once, scrambling apart and clinging together. Just an actor, Mark tried to remind himself, finding himself caging Jack behind his back as they plastered themselves to a wall, reaching a hand out for Matt and Nate. His eyes went wide as Foxy lunged at him, all too real and mechanical. Watched as it lurched forward, watched in horror as the hook arched toward them. Black. The room was completely black and silent, as though everything had been muffled. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only feel the pounding of his pulse and, very faintly, Jack's fingers tugging at his shirt. Is it still there? Jack asked for a long while, his heavily accented voice far too small, too scared. I don't know, he breathed, blinking to make sure he hadn't just shut his eyes. Slowly, slowly, the lights flickered back to life. No Foxy. As it was like he was acutely aware of every move he made, every harsh breath that was grasped, and the sounds of the other two in the room. Only two? Mark whipped his head around just as Matt turned to face him, the empty space between them stopping them cold. Where's Nate? Matt murmured shakingly, darting his eyes around the room. He was right here. I was holding his hand. Jack squeezed out from behind Mark's broad shoulders, blue gaze wide and scared as he bent to pick something from the floor. Oh my God, he breathed, presenting his find to the other two, a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. This is before Nate got LASIK! Oh my God, I forgot about that. Okay, so yeah, back in before 2018, Nate wore glasses. And he also, I believe, wore contacts quite often. But in 2018, it was a whole thing that people on his Instagram were being like, hey dude, where's your glasses? And Nate was like, hey guys, I got LASIK. This feels like a relic of history, people mentioning Nate's glasses. Mark felt sick. Nope, Matt said firmly. Mark and Jack turning their attention to him as he shook his head firmly and crossed his arms. Nope, he's in on the joke. It's just a haunted house attraction. Whatever, he's messing with us. Matt has a point, because Nate was the most chill. He was just like, it's a haunted house, it's fine. Mark frowned, awkwardly wringing his hands before shoving them into his pockets and glancing over at The Irishman. The Irishman, the movie. The movie from 2019. Carefully folded up the discarded glasses. He's going to pop out somewhere down the line. Matt continued ranting. Once again, this is Matt being a theorist. But hey, that's just a theory. A haunted house theory. Thanks so much for watching. Where is my one friend who did the Madpat impression for me when I need them? But whether or not it was to convince himself or the others was unclear. He's gonna pop out with that stupid mangle makeup of his just to have a good laugh. Oh, so Natemare is canon in this. Yeah, the stupid mangled makeup. So yeah, the blue tears, all of that. Also, I love that Matt's joking about that. I think that's funny. He's not really that much of a trickster though, is he? Mark said, immediately regretting his words as he watched all the blood drain out of his partner's face. Jack cleared his throat and slipped Nate's glasses into his hoodie pocket. We're never gonna find the squirrely little shit if we just stay here. Jack calling Nate a squirrely little shit. You've always been a huge piece of shit. If I could kill you, I would. Also, yeah, fun fact, that was like the one song Nate was just like, I am never gonna cover that song because you all want me to. And then he finally did. Sit here, you little shit. I am your mother. That's Hereditary. Solemnly, with a slight tremor to each of them, they moved towards the left-hand door, poking their heads into the hallway to check for animatronic actors. Before moving in on the clear pathway forward. Straight through the pizzeria's dining room and down another hallway out the other side. The ambiance changed. They could feel the air change, as though there was more to this next section, not daring to look at the stage, as they knew that the animatronics wouldn't be there. Distantly, radio static was heard from a room down this next hallway. Angle, Jack grumbled, scuttling it back close to Mark's side, glaring down into one of the rooms as it transformed into the hallway from FNAF 2. Matt squeezed into his other side. Should we look for Nate through these rooms? He asked, curling one hand into Jack's shoulder across Mark's back. If he's playing jokes, then we'll find him whether we're looking for him or not, Mark said, flinching away from the laugh of Balloon Boy from a supposed empty room, resisting the overwhelming urge to shout into the blackness. Jack once again tugged on Mark's shirt, catching his attention and pointing ahead at the security desk. Right, no doors in this one. No doors? Wait, how does the song go? We're back, revamped. The madness never ends, we're not alone. Looks like we brought some friends. No doors, no hope, but you keep coming back. The relief at seeing the familiar setup from FNAF 2 was palpable, and the trio all but sprinted forward to behind the desk, pausing only to glance under it for the mysterious balloon girl. Okay, so fuck monitors this time, right? Jack said, glancing warily at the computer screen and the spare empty Freddy head sitting on the desk. It'll waste our time, Mark agreed, and it gives the actors way too much time to come and find us. Mac audibly gulped. Vents? They're venting. The other two darted their eyes to the vents on either end of the office, cold spiking through them at the distant clangs deep within. Yeah, fuck the noise. Jack spat, curling his hand into Mark's and tugging hard. Look, there's the entry to 3 over there. The lights flickered. Nope, Mark shouted. Nope! Fuck that. We're out. He reached out to retrieve Matt, feeling his bony shoulder. He found fur instead. Slowly raising his brown gaze, Mark from the empty red-eye face of a withered Bonnie staring down at him. It was as though the air had been sucked from the room. Jack, he called, gripping the other hands tight, too tight. Sean? Oh my Christ. Jack swore, tugging hard on his hand. The pair of them shouted, feet moving on their own accord as Bonnie reached his dilapidated? My vocabulary is not that good. I know I pretend like my vocabulary is good by saying like lambasted and buffoonery, but dilapidated. I've never seen that word before. Reached his dilapidated hands towards them. Run. Run. They turned the corner, sneakers squeaking and sliding as they slipped past children's crayon drawings into the crumbling set of FNAF 3. Breath coming hard and heavy, pulses pounding as they gripped each other's hands. Where did Matt go? Jack screamed. That's an oxymoron. Cut off as Mark clapped a hand over his mouth. Bonnie's shuffling feet could still be heard somewhere behind the corner. Just an actor. Mark squeezed his eyes shut, keeping a firm grip on Jack's slim frame. They're just actors. Just an actor. Just an actor, just an actor, just an actor, just an actor. This person went to the Danganronpa School of Writing.
You're stupid! Stupid, stupid, stupid! Stupid, 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 stupid! Stupid, stupid, stupid!
The shuffling got quieter, trailing off away from their hiding spot. Slowly, carefully, Mark peeled his fingers from Jack's mouth. Sorry, he breathed, shaking his head. I was looking for Matt and Bonnie was there and... Jack took a deep breath, trying to face Mark directly. Okay, those two are probably in on the same joke, he said, meeting the gaze of the taller between them only after he said it. Nate may not be much of a trickster, but Matt certainly is. Mark nodded, but he knew that neither of them believed it. Not really. Right, he heard himself say, turning his gaze from Jack's painfully blue eyes I don't know why that's funny to me. To take in their new surroundings. A cold chill crept down his spine. FNAF 3. The empty head of Foxy with glowing eyes stared down the hallways at them, with rotting children's drawings curling off the walls towards them. Around the corner, he knew that Chica's head would be sitting on the floor, waiting for them to trip over her. And somewhere within the halls, Springtrap was wandering, listening, waiting. Mark wasn't sure if he could continue to try to convince himself or Jack that they were actors. They have to be, right? This is just an attraction. You're just an attraction in my amusement park. That's one of the best FNAF songs. If people were actually dying in here, then there'd be a lot of legal trouble for Scott. Give him legal trouble. He's homophobic. Still, he found himself believing that none of this was real less and less with each step. Jack and Mark kept their hands clasped together, not daring to let go, no matter how slippery their palms got with sweat from fear. We'll find them, won't we? Jack's shaky voice was barely audible over the giggling from Balloon Boy, the distraction for Springtrap. Mark swallowed hard and pulled Jack a little closer. Of course we will, he said, not at all sure. He paused only to recall the layout of the map, peeking around the corner before turning it, heading past the empty Freddy suit to the door that led into the security office. I am sick of these monitors, Jack sighed, keeping a firm grip on Mark's hand, even as he flinched away from the box of animatronic parts. Let's just keep going to 4, shall we? Sounds like a good plan, Mark agreed, catching a glimpse of a phantom animatronic out of the corner of his eye on the screen, and he froze. Do not. Jack was shaking his head, facing away and towards the exit to the last part of the attraction. A bedroom just within grasp, tugging on his friend's large hand. Do not tell me he's there. Mark's breath was caught in his throat. Springtrap stood just on the other side of the glass, swaying subtly in place, staring them down. The jokes he'd made in his videos seemed so childish now. Good Lord, he knew this couldn't be real. He couldn't help the way his pulse picked up again. Run, Sean, he said under his breath. The red lights in the office began to flash. He blinked rapidly as if we were waking up from a spell. Springtrap had vanished from the glass. Run! He both pushed and pulled Jack into sprinting towards the entry to the next area. His friend's skinny frame scrabbled forward. Run! The alarm kept sounding. The lights dimmed. He swore loudly, squeezing hard on Jack's sweaty hand. I won't let go. The lights cut out. I won't let go. Silence fell, stifling after the alarm. All he could hear was the pounding in his ears. Jack? He called into the darkness, shifting his grip on the hand in his. Sean? Silence. Please answer me, Mark pleaded, his voice cracking. This isn't funny. Nate and Matt are both missing. Please don't do this to me. Please tell me you're here. He all but begged. Please tell me this is your hand. I'm here. It was a familiar voice, but not Jack's. A dim light flickered on, revealing only a silhouette. Not the right height, not the right build, not the right hair, not Jack. And they were gripping Matt's hand too tight to be friendly, like a metal vice. He retracted his hand like he'd touched something hot, shouted in surprise and sprinting away into the bare bedroom that represented FNAF 4. What the he guessed out loud, turning to slam the door behind him, instinctively going quiet to listen for breathing. What the is wrong with this place? Mark? He whipped his head around. Another door stood vaguely ajar on the other side of the room, a small and scared voice drifting through it. Mark? It repeated, a shuddering gasp following it. Is that you? Yeah, he called, listening once more for any sound on the door he was holding shut. Nothing. Tentatively moving away from it, he stepped over to the other door, picking up a flashlight from the bed and listening intently. Who is it? Matt. His voice was shaky, breathing into a frightening choke. Why did we come here? Mark shook his head, scraping the red strands of hair, 2016, that fell into his face out of his eyes. I don't know, he whispered. It was supposed to be fun. Hesitantly, he pushed the door open. Here, let me get you out of there. Matt was waiting for him on the other side, but not like Mark expected. His arms were tied behind his back. I know what's coming. It's time! A gag tied tightly around his head and... oh God. Mark heaved. His eyes were wide open, staring lifelessly into the room behind him. He tugged on his hair, unable to tear his eyes away from the body of Matthew Patrick. Mark? His heart stopped. No. Jack's voice, made too quiet, too meek, drifted from the closet, focusing the flashlight's beam on the slightly open doors of the closet. He hoped, prayed, that Jack wouldn't have found the same fate. That he wasn't too late. He cracked the door open. He was. Jack lay crammed in the closet shelf, one skinny leg bent awkwardly off it and his head tipped backward over the edge. The bright blue eyes opened, but no longer shining the same light that he radiated, blood dripping from his mouth and over his face, mingling sickeningly with the green hair. Strength left Mark's legs. Too late. Two of his friends dead. He couldn't draw in a proper breath. He shook. He trembled with the sobs that threatened to overtake him. His face twisted with sorrow and with fury. The question from the very beginning of this repeated once more in his mind. Where is Nate? As if on cue, the bed behind him creaked as if someone had lowered the weight on it. Slowly, slowly. Mark turned his head to look over his shoulder. The silhouette he'd seen before, too tall, too broad, hair too long and tame, sat there, one leg draped over the other as he leaned back on his hands. Nate, Mark breathed, not trusting his voice. Where have you been? Oh, you know, the familiar voice, yet twisted in some deep, rasping way. Around, here and there. Mark turned his flashlight to the figure on the bed, a cold shock going through him. Nate's black eyes stared him down, unblinking and dull. He was there, but not. His hood hung off one shoulder, the ribs in his jeans somehow wider and coated with dirt and old blood. But most disturbing, a slice arched across his throat. Like what you see? Nate asked, grinning wide and showing off the clotted blood in his usually well-kept teeth. It's better than he usually does, in my honest opinion. Nate, please. Mark stood slowly, moving to stand between the other. They're in the open closet. Why did you do this? The man seated on the edge of the bed sighed dramatically. Nate didn't do anything, he said, glancing down to study the dirt caked under his nails briefly before flickering his flare back up to Mark. His eyes were dark, as if he'd not slept in weeks. Nate, he spat the name, was a useless piece of shit, could only make pretty music. His voice went high-pitched and mocking. He stood, too smooth, almost mechanical from the bed. This is another very interesting thing, and I didn't mention it too much in the analysis part of this video, but a lot of people had headcanon that Natemare is an animatronic. Like, I've seen like fan edits and stuff where it's implying that he is like which basically a human animatronic is just a robot. Like, so he's just an evil. Once again, me with fucking robot tropes. Nathan was too chicken shit to do the things that he really wanted to do. He growled, taking a step towards Mark. Mark glowered at the slowly approaching not Nate. He wanted to do what you wanted. Who even are you? The man before him laughed, low and showing off the dimples that were normally endearing, but somehow stretched over his face to make him more terrifying. The man didn't even really breathe. That's his breath. He seemed only to do so to laugh or talk, and the sound rattled wetly through his lungs. Nate was dead, Mark realized. This was something else entirely. It tutted with Nate's twisted voice, shaking one bony finger at him. He's doing the Volo shake. You're right, this isn't a movie, this isn't some story. You've got me monologuing. We can't have that, can we? Mark almost mocked him, backing up into the wall beside the open closet. He blinked and Nate was upon him, fingers digging into his neck. He fled his flashlight into the face that used to belong to his friend, watching in horror as it tore at a cheek, but he didn't flinch. He gasped for breath that wouldn't come, kicked at skinny legs that cracked but kept pressing forward. Vision went black at the edges. Knees gave out, and the thing wearing Nate followed him to the floor, kicking on his chest and tightened its grip on his throat even further. Why? He squeezed out. He needed answers, needed to know. Mark felt his fingers going cold even as he gripped at Nate's tattered hoodie. His face split into a grin as he leaned down, licking a cold, sticky line. A cold, sticky line over Mark's jaw before murmuring into his ear, "Because it's fun." The world went black. After 4 invited guests never made it out, the police shut down the attraction and began investigation. 4 dead bodies were found, 3 within the second to last arena in the child's bedroom, 1 laying in the hallway, 1 cramped into the closet, and 1 strangled on the floor. The last one was found in the more mechanical-inspired game before the child's bedroom, the scooping room, limbs broken and tangled amongst the shell of robots. Alright, there's another chapter, so we're gonna read it. Chapter 2. Nate was ill. That's how you start it? Nate was ill. From the moment he'd awoken, his stomach had been twisting unbearably, sending him hurtling toward the bathroom as soon as he cracked open his eyes. He needed to shit. He needed to wreak havoc on some porcelain. I'm kidding, obviously. Imagine this whole fanfiction is just a giant poop joke. Nothing felt right. Every muscle trembled as he heaved into the toilet, swearing and gasping for air. Aw, shit. This hadn't happened in years. This is the most embarrassing I've ever been on television. Adam woke up nauseated since he was a kid with food poisoning. Yet here he was, a shivering mess in a cold sweat on the bathroom floor. Nate racked his brain. Did he eat something bad? Was something past the expiration date? Did he forget a deadline? I'm still trying to rack my brain around a FNAF fanfiction chapter, starting with Nate wants to battle just shh. As if someone hit a switch, it went cold. Freddy's. Today was the day that he and 3 others had been invited out to try the new Five Nights at Freddy's haunted house attraction thing. If he let himself think about it, he'd been vaguely unsettled since the email came in with the invitation. Why am I so worried? I won't be alone. Sure, he didn't really like horror games that much and liked haunted houses even less, with their tight quarters and suffocating spaces. But 3 of his friends would be there with him. Mark, Jack, and Matt would be there. It was gonna be fine. Shakily, Nate wiped out his mouth and stood to rinse the taste of bile from his throat. Oh, he threw up. So he threw up. He didn't shit. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be just fine, Nathan, the familiar high-pitched voice from the receiver said, echoing his attempts at calming himself all morning. If it gets too bad, we can ollie out. Or ooh, we can throw Mark at the animatronics. Nate snorted. Matt, I don't know if you've noticed, but neither of us can throw Mark any further than we can spit. I've seen you spit, Matt retorted. It's pretty impressive. And gross. That was supposed to be our little secret, Nate joked, unable to keep the dirty grin from his face. What would Steph say if she found out? Before Matt could respond, the voice of his wife called distantly from the background, "Gay!" Oh my god. I love gay people. Me, a gay person. I love gay people. A round of laughter tapered off after a moment, and Nate sat heavily on his couch, removing his glasses to rub at the bridge of his nose as another wave of nausea threatened to overtake him. It's going to be okay, Matt told him again, voice much quieter this time, as if he could tell that his friend wasn't feeling well. I don't know, dude, Nate groaned, taking deep measured breath and slouching backwards. His face felt sickly cold. He felt his forehead. Did he have a fever? Nothing about this feels right. Zippity-doo-dah. Zippity-doo-dah. Like, this is a serious moment, and then he just goes zippity-doo-dah. Zippity-doo-dah. Nothing. A beat of silence. You always were one to listen to your instincts. The reply finally came. Blessing your good old fact friend. Yes, Mr. Theorist, Nate sighed, letting his eyes shut out the too brightness of the world. He definitely felt like he was getting the flu. I'm listening. These are all going to be actors in suits, right? Right. And none of this will be real. I know, Matt. No, shut up. Listen to me. Nate sighed again loudly, but kept silent to let his friend continue. You're not alone in this. There's 3 other people going in with you. Whatever it is that's eating at you, it's gonna be okay. You can hold my hand if you want. Nate snorted at the offer. Aw, how sweet. He paused for a moment before speaking again, far more serious as he opened his eyes to stare up at the ceiling. Seriously though, thanks. Of course, buddy, Matt replied, his smile evident in his voice. Come on, get yourself ready. I'll pick you up on the way over. After hanging up, Nate's stomach and nerves still hadn't settled. Fuck. I'd forgotten how loud these guys all together were. Not that he wasn't loud too, but somehow Mark's voice coupled with Jack's and Matt's made his scalp tighten painfully on his skull. Nate squeezed his dark eyes shut and rubbed at his temples as they waited to be let inside. It felt almost like everything had gotten worse the closer he'd gotten to this place. Glancing up, the sign read, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza loomed over them. Too bright and too big. You alright? You alright, man? Jack asked him, squeezing his shoulder. I'm fine, he said. No, snapped. He didn't mean to. Didn't mean to shrug Jack off him. Didn't mean to piss anyone off or be angry. But goddamn, the looks of concern were annoying him. I'm okay, really. He really wasn't. Nate tried desperately to ignore the trembling in his bony hands, bit back the bile that threatened to crawl up in his throat. Something isn't right. I shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here. Why is no one else worried? Am I just over-worrying? That's gotta be it. Everything is okay. Slowly, they wandered inside. It was almost a relief to finally make it past the threshold of the attraction. Almost. The air was blessedly cool inside, and it was only then that Nate realized that his face had been damp with sweat. Maybe he did have a fever. The corridors were too small for the 4 sets of shoulders to squeeze through all at once, leaving them to shove Mark to the front while all the rest of them trailed behind. Nate had never been so thankful to have Matt so close, even if it was done out of his friend's fear as well. The whole thing was set up perfectly. Look, there was Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica on the stage, and Foxy behind the curtain in Pirates Cove. All enough to tug at their nostalgia, facing the first game and not having a clue of what to do other than to shut them out and try not to panic too much when they came down the hallway. But something amongst all of the nostalgia and attention to detail felt off. Nate couldn't put his finger on it. No one else seemed to notice either, or they simply hadn't voiced it yet. Something's not right. Almost reluctantly, he smushed himself against Mark's back and barely complained when Matt followed suit against his own. I'm not alone. Please don't go anywhere. Stay right here. Should we check Pirates Cove? Nate never thought that those words would be some of the last he'd hear. The air was tense as Mark clicked over to the camera watching over Pirates Cove. He felt the blood drain from his face when the image flickered into life, revealing the curtain thrown open. Guys, it's a haunted house, he tried to convince his friends, tried to convince himself, forcing himself to uncurl his stiff fingers from Mark's shirt. Yeah, they did a really good job, and it's scary as shit. We gotta keep... The tiny room erupted into chaos. Flashes of tattered red and streaking silver. The sound of animatronic gears screeching. Black. The whole room was black. Nate couldn't see his own nose. He reached out, scrabbling for Matt's hand. Anything. Anyone. I'm going to puke. Please don't leave. And then nothing. The last he was aware of was the sound of his glasses hitting the floor as he was swept away. Too fast, too swift down the hallway to know which turn was which. Too out of it, vision too unclear and head too foggy to make any sense of anything. Until he was sat down hard, left to crumble in a pile of, where the fuck am I? Slowly, shakily, he raised his gaze upward, hands slipping and scraping in the piles of metal and plastic. Hovering above him, even through his blurry vision, he could see it there. A scoop. No. No! Please, he murmured, voice cracking. This is a joke, right? It's just part of the whole thing. It has to be. Silence. And the whirring of the machine kicking into life was the only answer he got. Please, repeated louder, lifting himself to his feet, backing away from the scoop. Whoever you are, this isn't fucking funny. Louder. The machine got louder. Reared back. Nate shouted, pleaded, and then silence. A fire arching through every nerve. Hollow. Felt the spine slip from his back. Felt it be replaced by something cold and metallic. Vision blurred at the edges. Blood drained. Muscles stopped responding to him anyway. Trapped within the shell of his own body, still aware, enough to watch from inside as whatever it is piloted the leftover muscles and tendons and skin that used to be his. Watched his own hands pull out pieces of his own skeleton to make room for the metal and cords. If he could be sick anymore, he would have vomited. Nate watched in vague, helpless horror, till somewhat attached, but completely out of control as his own body pulled smoothly, too smoothly, through the hallways. Watched as his friends wondered where he was. I'm here, he wanted to scream. I'm here, please help me. Please don't help me. Don't come near me. Run away. This is what he'd been fearing since the moment he received the email. Feared that it would someday consume him. But he never imagined it would be literal. Nate watched, horrified, as he whisked Matt away. Listened as the thing used his voice. His stolen voice. Watched, unable to look away as Matt was tied up. Much more expertly than the video he had done. Yeah, that was a whole joke where people are like, wow, Nate knows how to tie knots. He doesn't. He just tucks it in. As the older man stared up at him, mouth gagged and amber eyes pleading. Don't look at me like that, please. Don't do it. He felt the stretch across his face, the familiar dip in his cheeks as dimples appeared. Felt Matt's hair and jaw under his numbing hands and the jolt of the crack of his neck. Felt Matt's pulse shudder and die under his fingers. No. Please. No. What? Came his own voice, speaking to no one but Matt's cooling corpse. Aren't you enjoying the show? No. Well, that's just too bad, isn't it? He felt his own mouth turn into a pout, a sickening imitation of his own expressions. Once again, he watched once more as the lights flickered. Watched as Mark and Jack flailed in panic and I almost read that as sprinted away. Watched as his own hands reached out to knock Jack out, slipping his own hand in Mark's, big and warm, at least from what he could tell. Nate wished he could just die. His body was already there. Why couldn't he just drop out of existence? Why are you doing this? Jack was blessedly still and silent as his hands drove a knife deep into his belly and shoved him into the closet, letting the blood burble? I assume that is meant to say bubble, over his lips and face. Why are you making me do this? Mark was lured into the room, lured by an imitation of Matt's voice, then Jack's. Nate wanted to scream, wanted to warn him, run, but nothing came out of his mouth. It was useless. The thing inside him made him watch, made him feel Mark's pulse under his hand and how it slowed. Why are you doing this? He demanded, feeling as though he was shaking the bars of an immovable prison. Because it's fun. He sat among the corpses, blood dripping from his lips. Wow, you suck. You ripped me open to take over my body and kill my friends, and I'm the one who sucks? You're a terrible host. What did you even want with me? To be free. Nate watched from inside his dead eyes as his body lurched forward, past Mark's strangled body and towards the hallway, past Jack and Matt, down the trap door there, down below. Can't call it quits here. It'd be too easy for them to find us. Why me? Why me? The question felt dead and defeated, listless, and Nate wanted nothing more than to sleep. To no longer exist like this. Why did you take me? Why not someone else? Because you were the most open. The answer came simply, his voice crackling with saliva laced with blood. You let it in the most. Inspiration. Let what in? His walking corpse stumbled back down into a pile of robotic parts and blood-wet vertebrae. Freddy's, and answered, pulling out his tired shirt. Matthew did the research. Jack and Mark played the games. But you? His eyes finally closed. And slowly, Nate felt himself begin to separate from the body. No, wait, me. What? Time to sleep, Nathan. Time to dream. The metal within slithered away. The body dropped. And that's the end. That's the end of the final fanfiction I'm reading.
This is a homicidal maniac. No, you may not date him.
All in all, the evil YouTuber alter ego trend came and went. But it was definitely fun to look into this period of time. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the bell for notifications. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much.